Okay, hello and welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. And I have insomnia, this is a red eye edition of a Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, where basically I was supposed to go live earlier this evening, earlier this afternoon, kept getting delayed, got home, figured I wouldn't do it, but then was too jazzed from some coffee to actually sleep. So I put out some work and decided to do a live where I answered some more questions about history and social studies. We already did our usual Saturday live stream earlier at 1 p.m. And then I said I'd be back at 6 p.m. and I wasn't. Then I said I'd be back at 10 p.m. and I wasn't. So here we are, almost 1 a.m. And I figured I would do some quick history and social studies. I've got about, I'll go for about a half an hour or so answering all of your questions about history and social sciences. Um, as we usually do every Friday and Saturday, just once a day, but I figured I would do twice a day. Wasn't able to hold on to that promise, but it's better late than never. And we'll be back tomorrow for our live stream lecture at 4 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what people have voted on. I haven't decided yet. But communism in Asia seemed to be the popular topic that a lot of people wanted me to discuss on the live stream lecture tomorrow. So here I am doing, yeah, it's a historian PJ party today or this evening. So I can't sleep. And if you can't sleep, then maybe I can put you to sleep by talking about history and social studies, something that I do quite a bit that seems to put people to sleep all the time. Anyways, so uh, we are, yeah, this is the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel where we do history in a friendly, neighborly manner 24/7, 365, or 366 days. And yep, figured I'd give you another hour of Q&A. Like I said, we do Q&A every Friday and Saturday, but an extra hour doesn't hurt anyone, and I can't sleep, so it's a red eye edition that I think everyone will really enjoy. And if you want more historical content, both long and short form and live, please like and subscribe, anything, and that helps out the channel a lot, and I would really, really appreciate it. We will be live tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, like I said, for our live stream lecture. Hopefully, my feed is okay. Hopefully, everyone can see and hear me all right. So yeah, explain the justification for using nukes on Japan and what were the number of American casualties at that moment. Well, the Americans had lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers in their war effort in the last World War, what I consider to be World War III, what a lot of people would call World War II. Um, but yeah, a lot of men had been lost. The Japanese had proven relentless in their continual fighting in the island hopping strategy, although successful in many ways, had not actually brought about success in the sense that the Japanese were no more willing to surrender than they had been before. So the justification was that the bombs might put a quick and easy into the war, whereas a prolonged blockade or invasion of the islands would need Soviet help and would necessitate more capitulation to the communists in Russia, and would also mean a larger land invasion, which would mean more casualties, particularly probably more Japanese casualties that the Americans didn't want on their plate. And the war would continue for a much longer time, and many, many more American servicemen would die. Um, yeah, it was a strategic decision. It doesn't seem extraordinarily popular today, but if you actually look at it back then, it seems to have been the more humane, believe it or not. Now, obviously, there are huge moral consequences and issues when a bomb like that is used twice and millions of people die. So, Tom was asking about the use of the nuclear weapons. Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, where we do history in a friendly, neighborly manner. And welcome to our Red Eye edition, where I can't sleep and maybe you can't sleep either. And I'm answering questions about history and social studies. Happy Sunday, Saturday, wherever you are. We'll be doing our live stream lecture later today, 4 p.m. Eastern. And I haven't checked, but it looks like communism in Asia is the popular topic. You can vote on YouTube for what you want me to discuss with all of you. Welcome. It's good to see you all. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy history and social studies, and the content that we put out here is available for you. Would you rather a medieval era zombie apocalypse or a modern day era zombie apocalypse? Medieval era sounds pretty dope. That sounds like a lot of fun goth stuff going around, running around Gothic cathedrals, shooting them with crossbows. Japanese Empire killed millions in China, Korea, Philippines, and elsewhere. Yeah, the brutality of the Japanese fighting force, their relentlessness and their tenacity, is not talked about as enough as it should be. So, um, I'm really sorry about your beer, Caleb. Um, I wish I could do more about it. Maybe if you give me a super chat, donate to the channel, I can buy your next beer. I don't know how that would work, but hey, I'll ask for money if I want to. Japanese Empire. Yeah, we know that, Brian. You already repeated yourself. And there's no need to use all caps, which just communicates that you're screaming. So, what are your what if another country used a nuclear bomb? Example: if Israel, India, Pakistan, or Russia, how do you think world and USA would react? Well, ever since the use of the nuclear weapons in Japan, Alvavu, which it's great to see you, by the way. There's been this common motif and attitude of doing everything preventative in your power to prevent another usage of nuclear weapons. The idea of mutually assured destruction during the Cold War prevented both a large, massive land war between the US and the Soviet Union, but also prevented the use of nuclear weapons because if you destroy them, they'll destroy you. Um, if they were used again today, even in a tactical sense, it would be absolutely globally psychologically shocking and scarring that anyone would ever stoop to that level, knowing full well what they are capable of. They didn't know they knew the potential dangers of it. They didn't know how devastating it would actually be. And that's where the moral weight of it really comes into play because you can use this massive weapon and destroy so many lives and ruin and level cities at the drop of a hat. This is power over life and death. This is why Oppenheimer said, I have become death, the destroyer of worlds, because of what he had done. So, are the Jewish people a race or a religion? Judaism is the religion practiced by many people who are ethnically Jewish. How much you want? I don't know. What do you want to talk about? If you have a particular topic and you want me to go on a rant and you want me to get into a lot of detail about it, I'm more than willing to do that. A super chat would help that out a lot. Let's talk about how if Russia was a little dumber, they would have sided with Germany. Well, they almost did side with Germany in the last World War. I mean, the non-aggression pact, Molotov-Ribbentrop, and you have the dividing up of Poland and all of that stuff. So, um, yeah. I don't talk about race and religion on the channel. At least I try not to. This is a history channel. If you want to talk about stuff that's political and beyond the pale on stuff like that, then I'm willing to do it, but I usually charge a super chat fee if you want me to actually go into detail about those sorts of things. I don't even give my opinions on perspectives. Look up Lakewood, NJ. Jews are invading. Lakewood, New Jersey. What's happening in Lakewood, New Jersey? Robert, why no one talks about what that they were close? Okay. Close to what? How about Atlantis? Probably never existed. Greek lore. It's just a theoretical idea, just like any mythology that the Greeks talk about. We don't talk about if Hercules was real, but we do talk about if Atlantis was real. Um, could you explain the power of the Ayatollah in Iran and their current government operation? Does the Ayatollah overrule if discontent pursue? Yes, he is the ultimate decider, along with the mullahs, of actions taken by the secularized secular government. So the president, the parliament, and the prime minister can get things done, but it's really up to the Ayatollah if things go. So yeah. Do you think realistically be able to survive in combat as a medieval knight? I'd love to try, but it'd be so hard to do. The armor was heavy, the weapons were heavy. You've got to be pretty juiced. You got to be pretty buff to be able to survive. Um, so can you give a brief description of Iran and US government relations between 1953 and 1979? Very close. The US had their thumb on the scale ever since overthrowing Mossadegh with the CIA in 1953. Go read my Substack article on it if you want some more explanation. And then the US decided just to kind of abandon the Shah and let Iran do what they wanted, and what they wanted turned out to be totally counterintuitive to US interests in that region and has caused a lot of problems in that region for Muslim and non-Muslim alike. You have a massive militant radical Islamic government that's Shia as opposed to Sunni Islam, which is dominant in that area. So in Iran. So it's actually pronounced Iran, not Iran. But yeah. Can you explain how Catholic Church, how it's split, and we have the Orthodox side? So I was explaining this in the live stream Q&A earlier. We usually go Fridays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. on Fridays, 3 p.m. on Saturdays. Just for context, this is a bonus that I promised that I never got around to, and fortunately for all of you, I wasn't able to sleep, so I just decided to might as well live stream. Um, so basically, the 1054 is the official split between the Catholic and the Orthodox churches. You have the Catholic West, which has been dividing ever since basically the fall of the Roman Empire, probably before then. It speaks Latin. The Pope excommunicates the Patriarch of Constantinople, who excommunicates the Papal Legate. So you have mutual condemnations. The Orthodox Church is much more under the influence of the Byzantine Emperor, and so the two churches divide, and Christendom has its first major split in centuries, and it's the biggest split up to that date. So, um, the Orthodox tend to have all the old religious sites of Christianity. The Catholics have the unifying power of the papacy. So there's growing tensions. There's linguistic differences. There's affinity for the Byzantine Emperor. Of course, there's the rise of the Holy Roman Empire, which is kind of a copycat and kind of a Western replacement of the Byzantine Empire by the Pope and Charlemagne in the early ninth century. So there's these problems that's been going on long for quite some time. Thank you. I really do love this shirt. And thank you for the gift, Kobe. Anything helps the channel. History of the USS Liberty. So since Jackie Moon is so obsessed with this topic, even though there's no real reason to be obsessed with this topic because it really doesn't mean anything, the USS Liberty was a surveillance ship in the Mediterranean near the mouth of the Nile River, or sorry, near the Sinai during the 1966 or sorry, 1967 Six-Day War, in which Israel made a preemptive strike on Egypt, Jordan, and the Arabs. Um, the ship was attacked by the Israeli military. The official story says that by both Israel and the United States says that the ship, they believed it was a Egyptian ship. There are all sorts of theories and alternative explanations that pin the blame on the Israelis seeking to create a false flag operation in order to to blame the Egyptians so the Americans would join the war on their side. Some would go even further, saying the Israelis didn't want the Americans surveilling what they were actually doing in the area. 38 servicemen, Navy members, naval sailors were killed. It's a terrible, terrible moment. It's a horrible blunder by the Israelis, at the very least, perhaps even more nefarious than that. And it's a gotcha moment on this channel for a lot of people because they come on and they think that, oh, wow, I'm going to bring this up and everybody's just going to turn on the Jews and turn on Israel. And I think people use it as a cudgel, and I think it's really awful. I don't make any excuses about it. I don't think anyone could make excuses about it. So I am not a cop. Having a midnight stream because the trolls are in bed? Yes, but there's still trolls here, and I couldn't sleep. So you got that bonus live stream on Saturday or Sunday, early Sunday, I guess, that you wanted, and I'll go for another half hour answering questions. Um, Future history. Russian oil companies making money off this war as we pay more at the pumps. That's true. The sanctions, Trump has eased sanctions on Russian oil that have been in place since the Ukrainian invasion 4 years ago because of what's going on. But I'd rather stick to the history, Richard. If you guys want my perspective on what's going on in Iran as a historian from a historical perspective, if you want me to go into a lot more detail about it, consider giving a super chat. All the money that goes into this channel is used for the betterment of this channel. So and if you haven't gotten your question answered, I promise I will get to it soon. For the last 47 years, Iran has been ruled under religious dictatorship. Yep, that's definitely true. Why do the church hide all the misconduct they have committed against children? Burying crimes and misdemeanors by religious officials is just the nature of religion. I mean, why would you ask a question like that? It's obvious. Please, a brief synopsis of the history of Taiwan and how it gained their independence technically. Called Formosa by the British, Taipei being one of the major ports during the British investment in China, if you want to call it that, the hegemonic influence the British exerted over the Chinese in the 19th century. Taiwan has always been closely associated with the Chinese. It has been controlled by by different Chinese empires for different times. Again, the British called it Formosa. Really became the Taiwanese people consider themselves to be distinct from the Chinese in many ways. In 1949, it became the home of the Chinese Nationalist Republic, the Chinese Republic, better known as the Kuomintang, when Chiang Kai-shek was forced to flee after the Chinese communists, the Gomchangdan, defeated him under Mao Zedong. And ever since then, China has sought to undermine and eventually take over Taiwan. The only reason they have not is the US, Japan, and other allies of Western democracies have basically guaranteed Taiwan's independence as a bulwark against communism in that area of the world. China is huge. It has had the largest population in the world up till recently. The U.S. has done everything it can to undermine its communist and nationalist and expansionist tendencies, whether it's supporting the independence movements in Tibet, siding with India in border disputes, dividing China from the Soviet Union with Nixon's visit in 1972, or continually recognizing and supporting Taiwan. So You want to know that's as much as I've got for you on that. What's your general job title? Teacher, professor, history major, or just wondering, just generally? No, I'm not going to share about. I don't. Nobody knows my name unless they know me in real life, which some of you do. But I keep my. I'm very private about what I do. I have a master's in history and a bachelor's in history. My job is to communicate history to you guys, and if I do a good job, hopefully you can fact check me and it'll all come out to be true. Just imagine both sides of Spider-Man meme pointing each other, excommunicating each other. Basically, that's kind of how it works between the two sides. Hello, Savi. I am from Jaipur. Okay, so we got people from all over the world. Makes sense. It's early in the morning or early afternoon over there. So, how many countries or percentage does it take for a world war? I would say if you've got most continents, almost all the continents, I don't count Antarctica, obviously. If you've got major powers, if you've got colonial influences, you've got enough for a world war. That's why I think the First World War is actually the 7 Years' War, where you've got, the British colonies in America, you've got the French colonies in India, you have all these different colonies in all these different areas fighting each other, and then you have the Spanish and Portuguese empires joining suit later in the year. Your opinions. Why did Japan think it would take the US 2 more days and with divided support to declare war? I don't know and I don't care. Would you ever fight 100 babies or 100 old people? Babies. That'd be funnier to watch. Every US president has looked away from Israeli nuclear proliferation. It's really, really bad. Only Kennedy questioned it. Okay. Please give a breakdown of how Bill Clinton tried to mediate his tension between Israel and Palestine to construct a two-state solution. He got very far with the Oslo Accords, working with was it Yitzhak Rabin, and of course Yasser Arafat. The Oslo Accords would give the Palestinians 95% of what they wanted in terms of a two-state solution. It was the best framework, the most friendly framework to them since before the partition. Um, and Arafat refused, basically saying that he would be killed if he did it. And the Israelis took that to mean that they could continue to dominate and control the land. Um, you're an arrogant blowhard. Well, that's hilarious, Tara. Again, your opinions. Why did Japan think it would take U.S. businesses months instead of hours to support World War II or World War III? I don't know. They underestimated the United States, and that's what Yamamoto said. Are we more or less barbaric compared to other points in history? In many ways, the technology, certain moral and political and social conditions would make us think that we are less barbaric, but people are still barbaric. There are more slaves now than there ever have been in human history before. Female genital mutilation, genocides, things like this. You look at the 20th century; it's the hotbed of genocide. Um, I don't know if humans are really more moral than they used to be. Also, never forget the Taiwanese are not implicit in putting what? That's probably not true, Yuri boy, but what's the biggest cover up in history in your opinion? Probably the JFK assassination. I don't think Oswald did it. There's a spider on the wall next to the blinds. Yeah, probably. I didn't even pick a background. That's how tired I am. Let me see here, but I can't sleep. I usually put a nice historical background, something interesting. Here we'll put this is the palace of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This is during the Auschwitz in 1866 when Franz Joseph I married the princess of Hungary and became the king of Hungary. Um, where is Fu Manchu hiding? I have no idea. Masters in history, so you know about the Khazar Empire falsely taking claim to Jewish heritage? No, I just know that you're a bigot. Antarctica is a continent that is not inhabited, especially not inhabited during the three world wars. So, not going to count them. If you are being lied to, if your degrees like doctors are being lied to by big pharma, bankers use wars to reset the global order? Archaeological evidence, multiple perspectives, primary sources. It's hard to lie about history. People do it, but that's my job. My job is to sift through that and tell the truth. How often do people say you look like Jim Halpert? Oh, from The Office? I've heard that before. America won the Japan War because Japan wasn't studying physics and atomic scientific intelligence. True, and all the good Jewish scientists had left Germany a while ago and were working with the Americans. Kind of funny how that worked out. If Europeans are so good at football, why haven't they won any Super Bowl games? I don't really care. I feel we still have the lizard brains just with nukes, meaning we are more dangerous. Yeah, and we're careful. It's not that humans are just morally bankrupt all the time. Humans show tendencies towards great creativity. The brilliance of their technology can also make brilliantly destructive weapons. Yep, a night's time, red eye stream. I can't sleep, and maybe you can't either. So that's why I'm live. What happened to the Khazarian Empire? The Khazars are a Eurasian Eastern Steppe people that occupied areas around the Crimea. They are usually referred to as a Khanate because they are a Indo-Aryan people. They are more Asian than they are European in some ways. And they were a continual force to be reckoned with at the time of the Byzantines. So you asked a question, your question is highly prejudicial, and it has a false premise. Jews are not descendants or associated with the Khazars. Now, were Khazars who definitely converted to Judaism, just like there are in any other civilization and for any other religion. So, when I hear the Khazar stuff, I've done this long enough to when I hear the Khazar stuff, I know where you're going with this. Are you 100% certain we landed on the moon? I'm about 98%. If you could live at any time period in any country, when and where would it be? France, late 19th century. Beautiful. Going to a Renoir exhibit when it first opens up. Gosh, sitting in the Paris cafes. The Eiffel Tower is brand new. Electric lights. There's enough technology, but there's still this beautiful mystique. These things are happening and unfolding at that time. The French Empire is powerful and wealthy. Europe has not gone through the turbulence of the two world wars of the 20th century. So, yeah, do you know any obscure facts about Mozart or European composers people don't generally know about? Mozart was pretty anti-Semitic. Mozart also wrote Don Giovanni's overture in the morning it was due. So procrastination has existed for a long time. Mozart was kind of a playboy. Um, you know, a young genius, definitely needing to unwind and let loose. He did so in many of his works. If Joan of Arc never came to the French army inspiring them, would England have won? Probably not. Charles VII was pretty formidable, and Henry VI was pretty incompetent. The skirmish between people in Ukraine wishing to be annexed by Russia instead of accepting to be part of Ukraine nationality. Explain why, please. A lot of people in Ukraine are Russian, and a lot of people would think that it would be better if the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union were resurrected, and they've bought into Putin's ideas. There's plenty of Russian nationalists in Ukraine. Ukraine, throughout much of its history, was part of Russia. There was a time when Russia was part of Ukraine. That's what the Kievan Rus are. If a colonist hadn't blockaded Boston, would the Brits have just walked over the fledgling United States? Probably. Bunker Hill, Ticonderoga, the gathering of cannons, pretty big, impressive victory for the Americans to take back Boston and force the British to go after New York instead. Will communism ever be successfully established and overthrow capitalism? Watch my video. Today is the death anniversary of Marx. I do death, birth, and daily history events every day here on the channel, without fail. And I talk about Karl Marx, and I was just doing a video on this, and I think Marxism is interesting because everybody likes to say, well, that wasn't real communism, and they are right in a way, in the sense that the pure communism that Marx espoused hasn't been tried because nobody wanted to try it. Lenin and Mao were forced to revise it because no mechanized, industrialized society was actually open to communism, and every single time, and it went nowhere in any industrialized society. It did go somewhere in the Soviet Union where it was semi-industrial, and in China where there was a massive underclass of peasants. But it didn't go. But it just never. It never clicked because it's impossibly incompatible with what actually occurs in mechanized industrialized societies like France, Britain, Germany, the United States. So. What if Poland won the Battle of Brzura, countered deep battle fury, and stalled German blitzkrieg? I don't see them ever doing that, but it would have been interesting. They would have had to deal with the Soviets on the other end. Nobody knows it, but the Soviets went in too. I asked what happened to them, and you didn't answer. I would say you seem more bigoted. Who descends from them? Um, they're okay. So who descends from the Aramaeans, or the Elamites, or the Moabites, or the Hittites, or any of these ancient civilizations? Nobody asks questions about that because nobody cares. Civilizations and empires are conquered by other civilizations and empires, and their people are usually absorbed and spread out throughout these empires. And so that's common with khanates. Most of these khanates are dissemble, fall apart, divide, and turn on each other, and then are conquered and swallowed up by what becomes known as the Muscovites, which is later the Russian Empire. So I don't understand the question. So that's the answer. The vast majority of these people are swallowed up by the Russians. And by the way, the vast majority of them were not Jews. Khanates overwhelmingly converted to Islam. The JFK assassination was done by the CIA. We all know this. That's something that I probably think is true. Why is New Zealand not counted as the eighth continent? Zealandia? It's not big enough. Why Hawaii isn't counted as a continent? How do you remember these things? I'd like to know how I can remember and learn stuff easy. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I'm wired. I'm obsessed with this. I love talking about it. What I pride myself on maybe most is not my knowledge about certain events, it's my ability to jump back and forth from history in the 1400s to history in the 1900s and then back to the ancient world. I love being able to do that. It's so much fun. That's when I feel that I'm at the best and when the channel's at the best. Why are all trans women always Marxist fans? Um, there's a cultural Marxist element in the intersectional movement. I don't want to talk about politics too much. Um, Frankfurt School, things like this have been extraordinarily influential in reinterpreting Marxism in cultural terms in the struggles between the oppressor and oppressed narrative. It's no longer the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. It is trans versus cis. It is white versus black. It is gay versus straight. And that's happened. And there are many people who are very interested in interpreting their struggles in life and the overclass and the majority who seemingly oppresses them as being and seeing that in a Marxist dialectic. It's just a reinterpretation of Marxist theories in a cultural perspective context, using philosophers who have already done so over the last few decades. Let me see. I've learned so much about France, South Africa, Pakistan, United States, and Israel's nuclear proliferation. Complacencies and lies upon lies have set the stage for religion and global all-out war, which is interesting because nuclear weapons have done more to prevent global war than any other instrument in history. The League of Nations did not prevent another world war. Nuclear weapons did. Because that level of destructiveness is so massive that you would be insane to go to war if you have them and someone else has them, because the risk of using them at any point and killing hundreds of millions of people is overwhelmingly concerning. If you're going to be destroyed and someone else is going to be destroyed, then you're not going to risk doing something that stupid. Netanyahu is Polish. You deny that. Milosevsky is his real name, and his Polish heritage is documented and admitted. If these people claim and based on their tribe, why do they change their names? Okay, names are often changed in different contexts over time. You cannot. So this is an absurd take because the problem with this argument is you have people who are Ashkenazi Jews who are European, intermingled, intermarried, and acculturated with Europe in many different ways, have not lost their Jewishness or their Jewish identity, and are often separated because of this and hated because of this. And these people often settle in different areas. The reason there's so many Polish Jews, and actually there's not that many of them because many of them were murdered in the Holocaust, is because when France and Britain were kicking out the Jews, countries like Poland were welcoming the Jews. And that's why there's such a large number of Jews in that area. Poland has nothing to do with the Khazar Empire. Nothing. There are many Jews that are Ashkenazi from Eastern Europe, and there are plenty of people who, yeah, converted and are not necessarily biologically related to the ancient Hebrew people. But there's Sephardim and there are Mizrahim Jews all over the Middle East and North Africa. They aren't Europeans. They aren't Khazars. They're Jews. And so Ashkenazi is just a reference to Jews of European descent or people of European descent who have become Jewish. Do you think Leif Erikson was the true founder of the Americas or Columbus? I don't think either is the true founder. What Columbus did is create sustained, prolonged contact between the Americas and Europe, and no one else did that. So, in a way, he deserves the credit for that, but he didn't discover or found anything. If anybody calls out Jewish people for any wrongdoings, they're anti-Semitic. Criticizing people for things they are doing wrong is not anti-Semitic as long as it's. See, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm sorry, but I never said you can't criticize people. I have said that I know anti-Semitic tropes, and when I start to hear them, I know exactly where they're going with this. I have answers for them. You don't like the answers. People criticize. I made it very clear, Mr. Bill. You weren't here when I talked about the USS Liberty. I don't know why people are so damn obsessed with this. I really, really just don't get it anymore. Like, why is this the only thing people want to talk about? Why is this the only thing they care about? This is a mania. This is what, and I've seen this mania, and I saw what it did in Germany 90 years ago. The end result is death and destruction. And I don't know why it's almost always only one group that gets this mania directed at them. with all sorts of wild conspiracy theories. Yes, you can complain and criticize Israel, the Jewish people, think bad people have been Jewish and bad people have been Gentiles. When it becomes they are Jews, therefore this, that's where I have a problem because I don't think that about any group of people. Is Obama the catalyst of ISIS upbringing in Iraq, and should he be reprimanded for aiding and abetting Al Qaeda in Syria to overthrow their government? Is he the first U.S. terrorist president? No. Obama continued the same failed pattern of handling the Middle East that George W. Bush had started. Americans have proven in the last 50 years they don't know how to handle the Middle East, and it looks like they may be going down the same road right now. Um, Favorite nonfiction and fiction books? Oh, geez. Nonfiction. I've got many. I'm a Russian historian, so I'm going to recommend you read something about the Russian Revolution. Richard Pipes always has good stuff. Robert Conquest, Sheila Fitzpatrick. Those are some recommended readings on something that's near and dear to my heart. Um, so there's that. Fiction, Dune is a good one. The Lord of the Rings, epic stuff is epically interesting, and when it's more or less based on historical allegories, they get even more exciting. Are trans people a race or religion? They seem like Jews in their belief structure. That's ridiculous. Trans people are a subset of gender ID of they are a non-binary, well, they aren't non-binary, they are a break from the typical gender binary. I mean, that's not a race or a religion. How did people come up with pickles out of cucumbers? I have no idea. But using vinegar to ferment things so that they last longer is just something that is common for civilizations. Finding ways to make things last longer and taste better or saltier is something that's just part of human history. That's why beer was brewed. That's why beer was drank more than water. It was cleaner because of the fermentation killing the alcohol, and the alcohol killing the bacteria and contamination. What's the last good book you have read and would recommend? Lucy Wooding's book on Tudor England that took me forever to finish. Is philosophy a more Greek exclusive subject, or has there been other places, not many know, where people did similar subject to wondering and questioning, not scientific? I mean, the Muslims certainly did it. The Abbasid Caliphate, Averroes, Al-Khwarizmi. During the 9th, 10th, and 11th centuries, the Muslims were extraordinarily dominant in artistic, philosophical, mathematical, and scientific discoveries all throughout the Middle East. Baghdad was one of the biggest centers of learning in the world. In 1066, what if Harold didn't get an arrow in the eye and beat them out at Hastings? Would England be more German potentially? Yeah, and more isolated. England is connected to the European continent because of 1066. Before then, England is really kind of distant. But the fact that a French nobleman conquers an English land and then makes himself the king of it, and then you have the Plantagenets that kind of are the offshoot of that, and the Angevin Empire, England is going to be connected to France and therefore the rest of Europe for the foreseeable future. Do you believe that the American chattel slave system and the Spanish Roman slave system contributed to the forming different societies in the Western Hemisphere and how they look at race? Absolutely. You can't have it. You can't have the formation of racial differentiation without those things. But race existed before those things. It was just not, there wasn't sustained contact. So there wasn't a lot of opinion about it. Your answer makes so much sense. Thank you. I do my best. I think you're being sarcastic, but um, was Charlie Kirk on the same lines as Hitler? Are you high or just stupid? World wars are the smokescreen for financial reordering and human sacrifice, black magic, occultism. What? Justin, are you okay? Do you need help? Go outside and touch some grass, man. Whoever has the nuclear weapons, other countries are not going to think about invading them because they have the nukes, for example, the United States and Israel invading Iran. Well, there's only been one war in history I can think of where two countries had nukes and went to war with each other, and that was the India-Pakistan war last year, and nothing came of it. Are there any records outside of Israel or King Solomon being as wise as they said? I mean, the Ethiopians claim some sort of connection between the Queen of Sheba and holding on to the Ark of the Covenant that Solomon supposedly gave her after they had an affair, but this is all more mythology than anything else. You're going to have to go, there is a lot of evidence that the Jews centralized worship in Jerusalem during the Davidic kingdom era, and that they build a temple, and Solomon is attributed as the builder of that temple. What's a major religion before Hinduism? Jainism might have predated it, but Hinduism I think is the oldest. I'm not constipated, I'm just tired. They changed their name to attempt to sound less European and fool you with a gypsy parlor trick. Yes, they get gypped, so you've decided to insult 2 races, of people, both of whom have been horribly mistreated just because of their race. Jews and gypsies, which, by the way, that's who the Nazis targeted. Um, yeah, I'm not easily fooled by parlor tricks. I'm not easily fooled by you being a bigot, so I'm not gonna be easily fooled by, gypsy parlor tricks done by Jews. I'm sorry, but I'm just not. I know enough about history to know that um, Ashkenaz is the name. I don't know if you're religious, but Ashkenaz is the name of the son of Noah in the Old Testament. And it's supposedly that son's line that settles the European area according to ancient Hebrew understandings. So the Ashkenazi are named after Ashkenaz. That's why they're the European Jews. Do you know what a converso is and what Columbus is? Isn't a converso someone who was converted to the Catholic faith? And I certainly know who Columbus is. Um, I don't have any script, and I don't have $7,000. I would love a super chat of $7,000. Hit me up, Justin. But yeah, do the native Pacific Islanders really kill and eat Captain Cook? They killed him. They did not eat him. In fact, they hallowed his bones. It was over a dispute over a boat that they killed Cook. By the way, no way you can possibly justify the USS Liberty attack from our greatest ally. I never justified it. Go back and watch the earlier part of this live stream. Watch the other live streams, because you know what? If you watch one of my damn live streams from any of these weeks, you're going to hear me talk about this damn issue all the time, and I'm so sick of it. I really, really am. Now, Yuri, this might not be your fault. You might just be a prejudiced idiot who just came onto a channel just to insult and attack people that you don't know about, or you might just be might just be watching too much Tucker Carlson. I don't hide from any topic. I don't justify the USS Liberty. I don't. It's not my job to do that. My job is to talk about history. So I've talked about the USS Liberty to death in historical terms. I laid out a very specific, very non-biased, and I said that it's a terrible, terrible blunder at the very least, and probably more nefarious than that. Oh, there's bad actors in Israel. Wow. What a surprise. A country just does bad things. Get over yourself. Not to be dark or cynical, but do you think humans are destined to inevitably be the source of our own downfall? Humans go up and go down. They can be the destiny of their own downfall and their own salvation. What do you think about the Bolsheviks and Rothschilds? I don't think they have anything to do with each other. And this goes back to the stupidness of the anti Semitic trope. The Jews are the bankers who control the world, and they're also the communists who hate the bankers. What? That doesn't make any sense. The Bolsheviks were predominantly, disproportionately Jewish because the Bolsheviks were overwhelmingly educated, intelligentsia, upper middle class people in Russia, and many of them had Jewish blood. Okay, Israel is on par with Nazi Germany, but the pseudo state doesn't represent the Jewish population on Earth. Okay, so that's a ridiculous exaggeration, but it's at least balanced in the sense that you can separate your anti-Israeli stance with be and not be anti-Semitic. That's perfectly possible. When I drink, my butt hurts in the morning. Allergy? You should, yeah. I think you're allergic to roofies. Do you think history plays a huge part in sociology? Explain how it does or does not. Of course it does. History crafts societies, societies craft classes of people, and people act differently in different classes. Look at the Varna caste system in India. Watch my video on it to see how Indian sociology developed from that. Do you think we can survive without a war at some point? No. War is an inevitability of human result. Do you think that America is so bad at nation building is because we refuse to subjugate and enslave the native populations and women as seen in traditional wartime nation building? I don't think the US is bad at nation building. I think it's bad at nation building in areas that it doesn't understand. It does good nation building after the last World War in Europe when it rebuilds Europe. It has better results in Latin America than it does in Africa and the Middle East. Lack of understanding and appreciation of other cultures has led to huge problems in nation building, particularly in the Middle East of late. Who killed more humans, the Bolsheviks or the National Socialists? The Nazis. Okay, so Here we go. So that's actually a really good historical question. If you hadn't created this trail of demonizing Jews, then maybe I would have more respect for the question. But um, the the Bolsheviks. Like, if you want to talk Soviet Union versus the Nazis, the Soviets killed more people. Stalin killed more people than Hitler. But the Soviets and the Bolsheviks operated for a much longer period of time than the Nazis did. So it's not a very fair comparison. The Nazis have about 12 years and about 15 million casualties that are not war casualties under their belt. The Soviets operate for about 75 years, and they have a Bolsheviks, communists, Soviets, whatever you want to call them, and they were looking at about 50 million people dying. Um, so very, very, very weird thing. I'm not asking of politics history. I'm asking about a strength comparison: INSOC versus USSR. Interesting. INSOC, Orwell's English Socialism. INSOC was probably superior. It was the completion of what the Soviet Union was supposed to be in his mind. If Cambodia was truly a neutral country in the 50s, why did they aid and allow the communist North Vietnamese to establish the Ho Chi Minh Trail? Because they were communists. Is Russia today really socially closer to the U.S. 40 years ago than the USA today? No. How bad was Cold War propaganda? Give us a good example. I mean, look at the military parades of both the Soviet Union and the U.S. Look at the way that Stalin and Brezhnev were depicted. Look at the Red Scare. Look at the movie I was a communist for the FBI, or I married a communist. Um, the propaganda is strong on both sides, very, very strong. I, unlike you, don't believe in assassination conspiracy theory, but I believe a furious JFK said he would like to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind. Sure, and then they killed him. So there you go. Hello, Coco. Bibi thought the bombing Iran is like bombing innocent civilians in Gaza. What a fool. Do you know the Zionists have gypsy background? Great. Where are these people coming from? Now, when you hear the word Jewish, the word ish, why is that put on the end? Because the definition of ish, because it's referring to an ethnicity. It's the same as Ian for Italian, or from people from Africa. Do you believe in aliens? Yes, I believe the universe is big enough that we probably have aliens. That's why it's forbidden to do it. That's not why it's forbidden. I actually don't know why, but it's not that. Ashkenaz are the East European Jews which have Khazarian blood. Oh, you didn't even hear me. Or maybe you did and you just ignored me, but no. Just no. Ben Shapiro's sister is hot. Should Scientologists be recognized as a religion or a money laundering organization based on a fantasy writer book? The second one is more accurate. When General Fremont attempted a military emancipation, I forbade it. When General Cameron suggested the arming of the blacks, I objected, except that Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was to allowed more African Americans to join and fight for the Union Army than ever before, so that's wrong. More importantly, Fremont issued that Emancipation Proclamation in Missouri in 1862. Lincoln relieved him of duty because of doing that, because he didn't want the border states to join the Confederacy by freeing their slaves. That's why the Emancipation Proclamation only ended slavery in the southern states. Lincoln was being strategic. I know you hate Abraham Lincoln because you don't understand history, but I'm sorry, you're just not getting anywhere there. USS Liberty was not a blunder. If you take a look, there's some military left, and they tell you that it was a false flag by Israel. Why can't people admit it? I've left the door open on that one. I'm more than willing to say that it was a false flag operation by evil actors in Israel. Okay, can we move on from this? I mean, I'm getting sick of this. What do you people want? What do you want? What do the people who are so obsessed with the Jews actually want? What do you want? You complain about it endlessly. You go onto live streams you've never been on before, or you've been on before, which is worse because you should know better, but this is not what I want to talk about. And this is all you ever talk about. What do you want? What do you actually want? I'm going to skip ahead to the end of the chat because I'm going to go to bed because I'm getting tired of this. But I'd like to see from Yuri and Danny Boy and Mr. Bill and all these people, what do you want? What do you want from the Jews? What do you want me to say about the Jews? What do you want? Where does this end? Where does your hyper fixation, where you are more obsessed with the Jews than the Jews themselves are, actually end? anti-Semitism thrives online. Well, that's absolutely true. They want everyone to be anti-Semitic. They do, but I'm not going to be it because I'm not going to hate anyone because they're different. I'm sorry. I want a wife from the Jews. Well, that's nice. They want you to submit and agree with them. That's true too. They don't want critical thinking. They don't want questioning. They want to string together a bunch of conspiratorial arguments and then come up to the same conclusion they do, that Jews are bad. And therefore, that's all we can ever talk about. What do you want? I haven't watched the JFK assassination video. I'm going to wait to see if they say what they want, because I want to know, what do you people want? Because I engage with you all the time. I answer all of your objections, and then you just say, well, you're just a Zionist. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be forced into a ridiculous perspective that doesn't have historical backing and fails to allow for proper categories like evil people doing evil things in every single country in the world because you are obsessed with Jews. Maybe you should look inward. Why are you obsessed with the Jews? And what do you want? What do you actually need? Where does this end? Where is this going to go? I know where it's going to lead because I know history. You probably know where it's going to lead to. Is that what you want? Because if that's what you want, you're taking this channel to a dark place. What do you want? So to all the anti-Semites, or all the people who are not, oh, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm an anti-Zionist, or I just want or I'm just a truth teller, I'm just telling the truth. What do you want? And why can't we talk about the Austro-Hungarian Empire in the background? Why can't we talk about Napoleon? Why can't we just say, yeah, Jews are bad, let's move on? Why is this the only thing that operates in your mind? The stupid Khazar argument, which I dealt with earlier, the USS Liberty, which I dealt with earlier, the ancestry of Ashkenazi Jews, which I've dealt with earlier. And by the way, I've dealt with over and over and over and over and over again in videos and live streams. And those of you who've been around, you know this. What do you want? What do you want? Let me see. Mr. Bill, what is your obsession with demonizing Jews? Yes, that's a great question. This guy is very pretentious. So Jackie Moon, who's also going on, I'm also wondering what you want. I'm wondering what's so pretentious about me. Is the USA the only ones that has dropped an atomic bomb? Yes, they are. And if you go back to the earlier part of my conversation, you will know why and why no one else has used it since then. The world, in the League of Nations, the United Nations have not stopped wars. The nuclear weapons have. And you know who knew it? Dwight Eisenhower. That's why, despite his hatred of the military-industrial complex during his 8-year presidency, Eisenhower built up the nuclear arsenal more than any other president. Zionism has nothing to do with Semitism, so stop joking with your brain, please. Except that it does. That Semites live in that region, had lived in that region previously in different iterations for thousands of years. Yes, Zionism has a lot to do with Semitic peoples. And I have never, by the way, used either of these arguments. So don't say I have one. Oh, well, they were there 3,000 years ago, so they deserve to have a country there. Never said that. The Native Americans, they don't have their countries. They don't have their lands anymore. Not that they had much semblance of what a country was, but they don't have the land they once had. That's not how history works. And oh, well, and I never used they killed 1,200 people so the Israelis get to do whatever they want in Gaza. Before you want to go down that road, I have addressed that many, many times. And I feel, and the Israelis have shot themselves in the foot because by doing what they have done in Gaza, they have emboldened people like you to spew this nonsense and made and shifted the overtone window against them so that people on the far left and the far right will now buy whatever nonsense is spewed from the dark corners of the internet because people don't have the time, effort, or willingness to actually look at the real truths. And recommend any good history movies. There aren't a lot of them, but I do. But Oppenheimer is great. Braveheart is not accurate, but it's a great movie. Things like that. Gladiator is fun, but not exactly accurate. Bolsheviks and Nazis and Zionists are all the same agents of the devil, except that the Nazis killed Zionists. Are radical Muslims part of it? Or are you just totally focused on that? Do you think we are heading in the right direction? I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if there is a right direction. I would say if there is, we're not heading in it. Do you think humans will not go extinct but evolve into AI? Or they'll let AI evolve them? So false flag attempt, not a blunder. They were going to blame it on Egypt. This is a crucial information. Well, that's perfectly possible. I said that. I left that opportunity open. I said what the official story was, but I also left it open for a false flag. I have been a very objective in my coverage of this. That's why Bolsheviks stabbed the Orthodox Christians in Russia. Do you know what the Maoists did in China to the Christians there? It had nothing to do with Jews. It's communism hates religion, including Judaism. Stalin was planning the same kind of stuff Hitler was before he died. I'm Catholic. I don't share my religious views. I don't share my religious political perspectives. I am such a Zionist. My father's real name is Zion, born in Jerusalem. Well, there you go. He supports Israel so fervently, I would check the Epstein files for his name if I knew it. Okay. What do you people want? What do you want? This is a History Channel. This is a Wendy's, sir. And it's 1:30 in the morning, and I'm talking about this with you because I can't sleep, and my brain's going 100 miles an hour. What do you want? What do you people want other than me to just, oh, if I just admitted Jews were bad, we'd be like, yeah, that's great. No, you wouldn't, because you're never happy. No one's ever happy. These conspiracy theories are a swirling, festering pool of piss and crap going down a toilet. It only spirals down more and it stinks more and more the more there is. That's what this is. This isn't me being a Zionist. This isn't me being pro-Israeli. I haven't said anything pro-Israeli. What have I said that's pro-Israeli? I condemned the USS Liberty thing. I don't know what else you want me to say. If I don't buy your narrative, then I'm on the Epstein files. Are you kidding me? I support Israel so strongly. What have I said? You don't have any evidence because you don't care. Do the Native Americans deserve the ending of their multiple civilizations for refusing to advance as a cultural technology? I don't think that's why that happened, but I think they lost because they didn't advance technologically. And the Europeans were not that far ahead of them when they got here, but by the 1700s, they certainly were. Do you think Napoleon fell because he was a general tyrant or focused on power? Focused on power. And I have defended Napoleon and his invasion of Russia. I think it was a good idea. Changed my mind. Tucker, Fuentes, Candace are spreading Jewish hate. It's so, but they aren't the ones doing it. It's these people in these corners who are now feeling emboldened because of people like Tucker Carlson. Um, I'm sorry, but I just don't see any other group of people receiving this kind of hatred. I just don't. Not even Muslims, who there's a lot of Islamophobia out there, but they don't receive this kind of hatred. There's no conspiracy theories saying that Muslims secretly rule the world. The Muslim countries of the Middle East are far more barbaric and violent, especially in warfare, than Israel ever has been. And yet yet nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about 9/11, but they care about the Jews in Israel who danced during 9/11. Not about the Palestinians in Palestine who also danced during 9/11. They don't care about that. Because apparently being a Jew is worse than being a radical Muslim. I'm sorry, Jews do not want to kill me. So, um, is attending a bar mitzvah any fun? I've never been to one. So, who won the War of 1812? Canadians say they won it and they publicly celebrate that. Well, they were part of the British and the British won the war. So, yeah, I would say, Lauren, that the British and the Canadians won. I'm going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Let me see here. Let me see. Oh, you're a Zionist. Heresy. Oh, for goodness sake. So we've got the Catholic people coming in here with their heresy stuff. You answer me. Scroll up. What did you, I mean, it's not my job to chase you down. Um, they want you to say bad things about Jews and their sick trolls. They are. I just want to hold the Epstein class accountable, including historically speaking, for their crimes. Did Israel lead USA into a war, or USA lead them into a war? Which war? I think that the US has allowed Israel to drag it into wars. But I think that the US has seen the advantages to its own side because they're geopolitically usually on the same wavelength. Israel was created as a satellite state for US and Western interests in the region during the Cold War. You have to understand the creation of the Jewish state in the context of a bulwark against potential communist influence in that region post 1945. And to understand that, the Soviet Union was totally opposed to the creation of a state in Israel. Are modern Jews from Judea or Israelia? Well, Judea was what the Romans called it. Um, these are all different terms for the same thing. Who invented toilet paper? Don't know. Wasn't used in the ancient world. Let me see. People conspiring together doesn't mean they're not true. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that they're true. And the burden of proof is heavily on one side, and the burden of proof is almost always never proven. Yes, they want a historical scapegoat, which is funny because the term scapegoat is a Jewish term. You want me to pick a team? My team is history. My team is the truth. I'm not here to settle. I'm not here to buy into your strange ways. I've already answered it all historically. In fact, for the rest of the stream, I'm just going to ignore it. If you solve anti-Semitism at 1:40 a.m., I will personally give you $100,000. I mean, I think I've done a good job of answering a lot of this. So can you give me $5, please, Adam? Christians are being slaughtered in Nigeria. So? I'm aware. And Muslims face horrible discrimination in Great Britain, and Jews are being mistreated in different parts in the US. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. I'm aware of all of this stuff. I know all of this stuff. Why are you throwing out these virtue signaling comments, thinking that I don't know it? Because not only do I know the past world, I know the present world. But my job is to talk about the past world. Tucker or Candace are telling the truth, and people who get triggered by Candace Owens is telling you the truth. The French Foreign Legion had something to do with Charlie Kirk getting killed, and Erica Kirk wanted her husband to die. Candace Owens isn't telling anyone the truth. What about the Mongols in Japan? The Mongols tried to invade Japan twice, but typhoons actually blocked them, and the Japanese believe that the gods actually saved them from the Mongols. The dancing Jews in New York and foreknowledge of the attack and were detained by the CIA. Big difference between that and kids dancing on foreign soil. Celebrating the death of people is horrid, whichever group it is. But you only focus on one group. I focus on both. That's the difference. What about the church fathers who have expressed anti-Semitic stance, for example, John Chrysostom? I don't care about them. I don't care. This isn't a religious channel, it's a historical channel. I don't care what John Chrysostom said about the Jews. I love it when Catholic anti-Semites who worship a Jewish carpenter bring up this, because it's almost seemingly almost exclusively Catholics on the far right, the Nick Fuentes people who bring this nonsense up. They worship a Jew, and then they quote anti-Semitic statements by Christians who should have known better. They never mention that the first person to compare the Jews to vermin was not Adolf Hitler, but Muhammad. They never bring that up for some reason. Oh my goodness. All right. I'm gonna catch up to the chat and see. Um, I'm glad that people don't. I'm glad you have the wisdom, Colin, not to speak on that. Sorry if there's any delays in the audio or the lag. It's late at night. It's really bad audio. Probably my phone's gonna die soon. So you're clearly a good goy. History is your religion. You don't know what my religion is. I don't share my job is to talk about history. Your job is to waste my time. I'm better at my job than you are at yours. But maybe you should like and subscribe and see if how good of a goy I actually am. Do you think Mongols has better armor than samurais? It would have been interesting to see the Mongol horse archers trying to defeat the Japanese in their mountains. I think the Japanese would have had a huge home field advantage. The Catholic Church is the third temple? Okay, Jesus was the fulfillment of the Jewish law. He is the law of Moses. The Jews had their chance to be God's chosen. They crucified him. That's why Christians are God's chosen. You mean like St. Paul and St. Peter, the Jews? The fact that almost all the early popes were Jews? The fact that Christianity was a Jewish sect that worshipped at the temple, if you read the book of Acts? I know enough about Christian history to know that you're full of it. So, why do the Jews keep us from the maker? That might be the best Best, yeah. Thank you, King Jesus coming soon. Jews can become Christians too. I didn't know that. Last time I read the New Testament, I must have skipped over people's minds. Um, is the USA the new Roman kingdom? Could be. We don't know. Um, don't know about David Hunter, but I'll have to look him up, Mad Viper. Interesting stuff. I always like learning about people who are related to historical figures on this channel. If they didn't take away the McRib, there wouldn't be talking about it. Yeah. Um, the Jews have been out of communion with God since that. Some Jews are Christian. Yes, that's why God chose St. Peter and Paul, who worshipped at the Jewish temple, but never mind that part. That's inconvenient for us. Sharia law is not compatible with Western culture. People on both sides giving, yep. But nobody cares about that. All they care about are people with funny little hats. And all I care about is history. And hopefully you've learned something about history. If you have, please like and subscribe. I'm going to wrap this up because I'm actually expounding my energy and I'm ready for bed. So thank you. It's almost 2 a.m. over here. Or is it? I don't know. Where am I? You don't know. What's my name? No clue. But I'm the Friendly Neighborhood History channel, and you can be a friendly neighborhood historian if you like and subscribe. Um, Now I feel like I'm ready to get some sleep. Uh, Join us tomorrow, live stream lecture, 4 p.m. Eastern. We won't be talking about any of this nonsense. We'll be talking about maybe communism in Asia. I don't know. I don't know. You guys can go vote here on YouTube for that. I hope you all have a really great rest of your evening. I will see you tomorrow, and maybe we'll have Q&A at the end, and maybe we'll talk about.
Okay, so I kept saying I had to charge my phone and it died. So, um, thank you for everybody who did subscribe. Uh, if you are still here, let me see. I want to read through the chat real fast and then I'll wrap this up. I'm still not that tired. Um, Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me see here. Where was I? Uh, Somebody was writing out good night. I'm gonna have to look up David Hunter. Um, so word heard that the samurai cut the Mongols to paper dolls. Yep, whatever forces were left were butchered by the samurai. Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate that. No, no, Colin. I mean, they get to me only because I deal with it so much. The real truth of the matter is this is not what I want to discuss. And a lot of times I'm able to ignore it. Sometimes I'm not. Tonight I wasn't. Main reason being that I just hear it over and over and over again. And it's from different people, and maybe they make burner accounts, but this just seems to be an obsession. And I just don't know why everybody's obsessed with it. And I wish they weren't. I wish people were actually sensible enough to realize that the world, how categories work. So, um, yeah. Do you think brainwashing is a real thing? Well, Danny boy, maybe I falsely attacked you earlier. I apologize if I did. Go back and watch the earlier part of this live stream and look at the comments. Go back and read through the comments. Brainwashing is an absolute real thing. Um, and funny enough, I didn't have my moderators tonight, so nobody got banned. Um, so um, yeah. All right. It looks like yeah, I'm gonna be able to get to sleep now. It's coming up. What is it? 1:53. Okay. So I'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we will be doing our live stream lecture. I'm not, yeah, blurred lines. That's YouTube. That's not me. I'm a free speech absolutist. I typically don't ban people if they have questions, even if the questions are really nasty. Um, so, um, so, um, Going to sleep with your boyfriend. I didn't know that your mother was my boyfriend, but thank you, NG Anderson. Uh, we will see you all tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, or today, 4 p.m. Eastern, whatever you want to call it. Please vote here in YouTube, and you guys can find out. You guys will be discussing whatever topic you think is best. Hopefully, some of you learned a little bit of history and social studies tonight, and hopefully, I was able to help you with that. So, if I was, really appreciate it. Consider becoming a member. You get early access, bonus perks, members only lives, all sorts of stuff. Um, so, anyways, I hope you guys have a great evening, and yep, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for spreading love. We really appreciate it, Ali. Hopefully, you spread a like and a subscription. And take care. And as always, guys, love history. Bye bye now. Okay, I'll take that in the context it was given. Yep. Love history. That's my sign off as usual. Bye bye now.